Hello and welcome to TelecomTV. I'm Martin Warwick and I'm talking with Rajesh Rajamani and Cassan from Spirent. Gentlemen, welcome. One of you I've met before, Rajesh, other I haven't. You're both equally welcome and thanks for talking to us.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
I would like to ask you about ecosystems and that kind of stuff and the sort of partnership sort of going on with the NFV ecosystems and environment. Starting with this. Spirent has been an HPE OpenNFV partner for quite some time now. Why is it, Ross, so important to you to be part of ecosystems such as OpenNFV and network builders?
Right, so we've been a partner since the beginning days. We're actually one of the original founding partners and one of the technical partners. And this is very important to Spirent. There's a lot going on in the different standards bodies. A lot of standards being developed and progress being made, but there are still things that aren't covered right now. So it's very important that industry players like Spirent, HP, Intel, and other vendors get together and fill in those gaps in the ecosystem to be able to deliver solutions to CSPs.
Thank you. Rajesh, one for you. We hear an enormous amount all the time about the importance of openness in NFV. Why is it so crucial for the deployment and evolution of NFV in CSP networks?
Sure. So one of the goals of NFV is to kind of prevent the proliferation of siloed solutions and proprietary solutions. Right? The dreaded vendor lock-in is the reason why the whole thing started up, right? And that's precisely what we want to avoid, and we can avoid it by open software. And openness. I mean, Ross mentioned standards, and some of these standards to get finalized are going to take years and years and years, and maybe they never will. And this is where an alternative to that would be rapid community-sourced joint development of platforms, right? Such as the KVM or even parts of the management and orchestration, which are going to be open sourced. And that way, people can have common platforms on which to build their differentiated solutions. And this is why I think openness is important. It prevents vendor lock-in and helps interoperability.
Thank you. Staying with you, Rajesh, for a minute. What benefits do VNFs deliver to, provide to CSPs?
Yep. VNFs allow CSPs to progress at the pace of software instead of the pace of hardware. And that is an important distinction. The traditional physical chassis or appliance-based solutions have been good performance-wise, but it takes 18 months, 24 months, even 36 months to deploy. And in specific cases, I know of telco service providers who wanted to get into new markets in new countries where customs was a problem, exporting of gear was a problem. It was so much easier. Instead of, in fact, years, within days, they could download the VNFs and get things up and running. So flexibility is key, agility is key. VNFs run on multiple different hypervisor platforms, hardly any changes needed. So it's all well suited to the goals of quick delivery of services.
What are the next steps, do you think, in utilising the partnership to provide communication service providers with pre-tested VNFs?
Right, so we've been involved in many POCs with the environment and partnership with HP and Intel, proving out technologies out to customers, so things like virtual IMS networks, virtual EPC networks, virtual CPE, and showing that these things really work and can scale and can run as well and with more flexibility than their physical counterparts. From our standpoint, the next phase in that is continuing in that model and moving towards operations, moving towards trials where we're actually running in live networks with real customers, and that's where I feel the next step is, and we're excited to be making that step with our partners.
Why is this pre-validation so important to CSPs?
Think about it, right? NFVs bring so much promise. I mean, we've all been talking about for the last 4 years, the OPEX savings and the CAPEX savings and the new revenue potential. And yet, it almost seems like, I mean, with all of the promise and development, there's still a little bit of a pause button here and there, right? Things aren't progressing, and that is because people yet need to get comfortable with the performance and reliability of these NFV networks and services, and ensure that at least their equivalents are better than the physical counterparts. And that's where pre-deployment validation is important. Instead of facing the prospects of very, very expensive failures, which is going to cost millions and millions of dollars, I mean, it's important to recreate those scenarios realistically in the labs, build all these virtual environments, and subject these virtual environments to real-world, realistic loads, right? Thereby providing confidence that, you know, this is worthy of being taken out to the field and deployed. And in fact, Spirent has been working very closely with the ETSI and the European standards bodies to author specifications on methodologies on how we go about actually validating pre-deployment validations of NFV environments.
And Ross, the last question goes to you in this. How does Spirent, along with HPE and Intel, help CSPs with time to market, for example, interoperability, and above all with NFV deployments themselves?
Right, so in terms of our partners, HP and Intel, they provide the underlying infrastructure that all of this works on. We at Spirent focus on providing visibility, validating that infrastructure is doing what you think it's doing and it's supposed to be doing, and then building on top of that these networks and chains of virtual network functions, and providing visibility into that, whether it's in the pre-deployment or development phase when you're doing R&D, making sure that the environment is there, it can scale, and then looking at making sure the application is working, that you can reach the end application, it's running at the rate that you think it's running on, and you can really tune the orchestration rules. So that's what we do in the lab phase, and then we move through into deployment. We look at, as something is deployed, before you bring customers on it, just that last sanity check. Let's make sure that there wasn't an error made in the configuration as we move into the deployment phase. And lastly, out into operations, just providing that visibility and feedback into the orchestration system that yes, everything's up and working, it's running as expected, and if it isn't, doing something about it, running more testing to understand what's going wrong, and then possibly bringing that back into a lab scenario if we do find an error, to be able to go tune an orchestration rule or fix a problem in a VNF. And then you start the cycle all over again.
So it's a sort of positive feedback loop, is it?
Yeah, we refer to it as DevOps in the industry, development through operations. And we help our customers do that for virtual technologies like virtual EPC, IMS, routing functions, pretty much the whole gamut.
Gentlemen, interesting stuff. Thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you.